I'm going to call the select board meeting of November 9th to order. I need a motion for approval of the agenda, please.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. There is one addition to the item, or to the agenda, item 5, which is the emergency purchase of a well pump loader for the water department. Does anyone else have any additions, subtractions to the agenda? Nick or Esther or anything?
No, nothing here, Heather.
Okay. All right, all in favor of the agenda, please say aye or signify with a thumbs up.
Aye.
Aye, we're all in favor. Okay. The next order of business is approval of the consent agenda. There are a lot of things on the consent agenda tonight. Approval of the minutes, acceptance, there's no subcommittee meeting minutes. The proclamation of appreciation for Neighbors Together. The town manager's report, budget timeline, second draft, updated expenditure review roster. Thank you, Kathleen, for putting that together. Update from the Vermont Cannabis Control Board, the Homeless Task Force update, and current correspondence. Does anybody have anything that they wish to pull out of the consent agenda for tonight?
The only thing I have, Heather, is that because I wasn't a participant in the October 26th meeting, I can't vote on that particular item.
Okay. Nothing, all good? All right, we'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Farhan. Any more discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thumbs up. Thank you. And one abstention just on the minutes for. Okay. Comments. This is for anything not on the agenda. We have Amy in the audience. Amy, if you have something that's not on the agenda, please raise your hand. Otherwise, we'll continue on. No one else is here. Good. All right. So we're moving on to item 5, which was the addition to the agenda for the emergency purchase of a well pump loader for the water department. There is a memo in our packet from Bill detailing the explanation for the need and timing of the purchase. And there's also a purchase order and a quote in there. Does anyone have any questions? Discussion on that?
That is a big, expensive pump.
Yes, it is. It's pretty important too.
Yeah, yes, yeah.
What's the total cost? I don't see on the agenda.
There was a total cost on the, I think on the purchase order, it was $31,500.
31,500.
Yep.
Heather,
Has that been updated?
the purchase order amount, but the approval amount for the motor itself is $21,250.
Okay, so we don't have to do the whole amount for all of
Right.
okay.
The other items on the PO are just estimates at this point, and
Okay.
Bill is working to finalize those.
So the purchase of the motor is just $21,250. The estimate to complete all of the work, including the electrician, crane service, control technician, and contingency, is the $31,500, and those are estimates.
So the motion is for 31,500 or?
No, for $21,250.
That's not the motion.
Oh,
The motion is
Because this is all.
the ancillary cost of parts, so it's 10,000. Well, it's unknown right now.
It's unknown. So Kathleen approved the purchase order for the well pump motor on Friday as an emergency purchase,
okay,
so that we can get that under the.
okay,
The other items that are there are pending a formal quote from the supplier. And we had hoped that Bill might have that information in hand tonight so that the board could approve the ancillary expenses, but we don't have that yet.
Oh, okay,
So this is essentially an information only item tonight.
oh, okay.
So no,
So Kathleen has already approved the motor purchase.
Yes.
Okay, and we'll just continue that item until we have more details.
Hopefully next,
But
Tuesday.
the motion on there is just for the,
we don't have
Yeah,
a dollar
sure,
amount for that.
We put a placeholder motion in the notes in the event that
in the event that,
Bill
okay,
has.
we don't have it, so we're good.
We don't
Okay.
Okay, so we'll probably see that next week or in the first meeting of December.
Right.
Okay. I get it now.
Me too.
I thought we needed to do more to approve that emergency purchase order. Okay, so there are no departmental purchasing requests, so we'll move on to item 7, which is the flood resiliency project change order number 3 for construction oversight engineering due to the extension of the project. As you guys know, the project has extended beyond the original end date of October 1st. I'm not even sure if it's completed yet, but I think Dan told me it was supposed to be done by November 1st. But now in reading the change order memo, the tree planting will happen next spring. So I would assume it will not be all wrapped up until next spring, until that's all completed. Any questions?
One question is, we still have $20,000 in the budget for this?
That's a good question. I don't know that we have the answer to that. No
I
idea.
don't know. I believe we do.
I think, I want to say I believe we do too, but I don't know for sure.
So you could approve it pending verification at this one.
Okay. You guys, are you comfortable with that?
I'm comfortable with that.
Okay.
I'll move to change order number 3 for East Middlebury flood resiliency to extend construction oversight services into the spring of 2022 at a total cost of $20,000 pending verification.
Thank you, Farhad. Is there a second? Thank you, Dan. Any other discussion? Nick, Esther?
No.
Okay, good.
No, we're fine, Heather.
Okay, all in favor, please signify with a thumbs up or an eye. Aye. Okay, we're all in favor. Next item is number 8, the general fund budget. These pertain to the Health and Human Service Agency request being submitted and for consideration for the FY23 general fund budget. There's additional background in our packet, and then item 8A is an inquiry from the Social Service Agency seeking funding from the town for the first time. Policy has been to require a petition of 5% of the town's voters for inclusion on the warning for town meeting. How do you say Claire's first last name? Claire Giroux? Is that right?
That's what I would do.
Close enough. Claire Giroux Williams, Development and Communication Manager for the Vermont Family Network, has submitted a new funding request to the Select Board seeking an appropriation in the FY23 budget of $2,500. The town's policy for appropriation aid to Health and Human Services program normally requires organizations seeking new funding to submit a petition signed by 5% of Middlebury voters. The board has also received a request from the United Way of Addison County to waive the current petitioning requirements for nonprofits seeking funding. And this is obviously in light of the face-to-face contact while the COVID Delta variant remains active in our community. So we need to consider BFN's request and whether we choose to accept the funding request and waive the petitioning requirements.
And Heather, just so you know, Jessie Brooks of United Way has joined.
Okay,
She may be able to shed some additional light on petitioning requirements we were talking about earlier.
okay,
So Jasky, I'm going to promote you to panelist and bring you into the meeting.
Hi there.
Hi, Jesse.
Hello.
All right, I'm just going to turn my volume up. I apologize for the wait.
We can hear you well.
Okay, great.
So, one question I was inquiring about to Chris before we started the meeting tonight was what the Secretary of State's office is requiring as far as petitioning, like those people up for reelection. You know, now that the emergency order's been lifted, what has this Secretary of State provided for guidance on petitioning? We weren't able to find anything on the website, so I don't have anything more to share. So I guess discussion from the board on their thoughts on waiving that for this year.
I assume that we have the authority to be able to waive that.
Yes, because it's our policy.
It's our policy. Okay. I think under the current conditions we are in the state, that it's really a good idea. You know, you mentioned candidates and stuff like that. Those aren't due till January, so it'll be hopefully a different environment then. But I think this is a really good idea right now.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So the first order of business would be to accept a request from the Vermont Family Network for the new appropriation and to waive. And then the second would be to make a motion to waive the petition requirements for, I would say, it does say any nonprofit agency seeking a new appropriation in FY23.
Heather, yeah, a couple thoughts on this. In fact, some of them were exact. I have a couple of thoughts, and some of them are exactly what you were asking, Heather, because whether in fact there's been a ruling from either the governor's office or the Secretary of State for other things that have to be petitioned, and I haven't seen anything to say it's different. Yeah, I mean, the COVID is still active, but it's a very different scenario than last year, if you really think about it. You know, last year we waived it, but of course there were a lot of unknowns about the disease. The governor had us under an emergency directive. A lot of facilities were closed or highly restricted, and vaccines were just emerging. You know, now we look this year, it's a different scene. Yeah, there's some Delta variations out there, but still relatively. I've been listening to some of the medical professionals in their state, and while there's been some increases, it's still we're incredibly low. We're not under a emergency directive from the governor, you know, with the vaccines are widely used now in Vermont. We're very, very high on that. So I'm trying to figure what's the difference between what's being requested and actual reality versus what has not, you know, is from the Secretary of State's office where they haven't changed any direction. You know, a big reason, and I was one of the few board members that was actually on the board at the time when this 2016 policy was implemented. And it was to basically have two purposes. One was to protect the taxpayers, to make sure that, you know, the agencies were well spending the taxpayers' money, and there's no reason to believe they aren't. But it was also to keep these organizations in the forefront so that taxpayers could decide if they wish to continue the funding or to change it. So that's why the policy is there. And while I look at this and I think, you know, I think for anything new, we are definitely going against the policy. And for those that are existing seeking I could see waiving it, but only not for another 5-year span. I think we would insist that they do it for next year. You know, so it'd be a short-term waiver and not a 5-year until it's their turn to come around again, because it's how we protect, you know, the taxpayers' money. So once again, I'm not sure what I see as different about, you know, what they're requesting versus what the state is saying as general policies for other things. And so it's why I'm having a little bit of a difficulty saying, is this something we really want to entertain? I'm interested to hear others' viewpoint on that, but again, there is a purpose why that policy is in place.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Nick.
I mean, I could see a situation where we say, no, we continue with our policy unless it's superseded by a directive from the governor or from the Secretary of State's office. But that's all I have to say, Heather. So we'll hear what your opinion is.
Well, one thing, that's not gonna happen because they won't do that unless they declare a state of emergency.
Right.
So they're not gonna do that. I just think it's kind of in bad taste right now when Vermont has its highest hospitalization rate. 3 more people, I think, died today, and we're setting record numbers of positivity cases. I know myself and my wife are very concerned about being out and about without masks, and I don't think I feel comfortable sending people out with petitions, either knocking on doors or going through the stores or post office or so to try to get signatures right now. I just think it's bad taste right now. I agree with you that making this just a 1 year deal, and that if somebody was supposed to be up for their 5-year renewal with a petition, that they should do it next year.
But otherwise, they're not compliant with the with the policy. And I'm reluctant to move away from policy directives unless it's really good, hard reason. I could go for this, but again, I had to question, why is this different than what we're not seeing from the governor or the Secretary of State with policies of emergency. So if we do this, I think we need to absolutely insist that these requirements will be met next year, or otherwise they're out of compliance.
Sorry.
That's right, just reminded me, I don't think I dropped mine.
I'm a very important person and people call me. My son. All right.
Okay, do you want to weigh in for it? Did you have
I
anything?
think that makes sense to have a 1-year extension and revisit it next year, depending on what conditions are next year. If it gets worse or something, then we can come back and talk about that.
Okay.
So,
All right, thank you. Esther, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I would agree with a majority of the group. I think waiving it for this year and then reassessing, but I do think it's important, as Dan said, to just consider what's going on in our community right now with the COVID cases. It's a little bit scary. And so doing a petition right now would be in bad taste, but I do agree waiting a year and then reassessing.
And then Jesse has her hands up.
Yes.
Jesse, go ahead, please.
Hi there. First of all, thank you for adding this to the agenda tonight. I am representing United Way tonight as the Director of Advocacy. I just wanted to put that on record. One of the things that we've been doing at United Way is an advocacy tour as part of our new focus on this work. And right now, after speaking to almost all of our 30 funded partners in Addison County, one of their biggest hurdles during this time, as we face not only a pandemic, but a workforce shortage, is not just the concern of COVID. That's certainly at the forefront of this conversation, but the lack of people to be out there collecting these signatures in order to be on the ballot. We have organizations who are putting vaccines into people's arms and simply don't have time to do this. And they're also burnt out. They are doing way more than what they're being paid to do, working over hours. And many of these things have to happen, the collecting of signatures have to happen on Saturdays when people are going to the dump or going to the recycling. It's also, while we might not be in the state of emergency anymore, what is unknown is people's feelings about the pandemic and the level of concern that they have as individuals. What we don't want to have happen to our wonderful funded partners and organizations who do help so many people across Addison County is to have a bad public perception because they are there trying to collect signatures so that they can have this funding from the towns. So that's also an important thing to factor in here is the public's perception of these organizations being on site, where other people might not feel comfortable running into other people when they wouldn't expect to, and they're not planning on it. They might not have masks when they're standing in their vehicles, dropping off their recycling, and not be prepared to have these conversations with people and signing these petitions. So while the governor hasn't put out anything, we don't understand yet fully how Addison County residents may feel about this. So I think at this time, given the sort of uncertainty of things, it is the best sort of practice to move forward with just waiving this, at least for this year. And I appreciate the consideration.
Thank you. Thank you for bringing up those points and sharing that with us and being here tonight. I appreciate it. So yeah, go ahead.
So I do agree a little bit more now after hearing you about waiving the petition requirement, because I didn't think about the lack of help to go get petitions. And being in retail, I know how hard it is to find people to do things. The other part I was kind of iffy about, because business is booming, people are coming in dozens into the stores. So I don't think that was a huge concern for me going up, but finding people to do that is a big challenge, and I agree with that. So I support that 100%.
Okay, thank you, Farhad. Appreciate it. Go ahead.
Well, that actually, I agree with Farhad. That was actually a stronger argument that Jesse just gave. No, that to me, I find I'm more sympathetic, to be quite honestly, toward, because I did actually have a few people when I was sort of doing some inquiry around various people in the community, when I asked what they thought about it, and they said, well, that may be true, but I still have to go to work during COVID, and that's how I pay my taxes. So there wasn't as much sympathy, but I think the argument that Jesse just gave grants a lot more sympathy. And so I would say, in future requests, be sure to put in enough details so that we can really look at the big picture. So that actually has swayed my decision. And I'm glad you were here to do that.
Great. Thank you, Nick. Esther, did you have more?
Yeah, Jesse, that was so helpful. I'm happy you're here. Thank you.
Okay, so the first item is consideration of the request from the Vermont Family Network for a new appropriation in the FY23 general fund budget of the $2,500 and to waive the town's petitioning requirement.
Should we do a blanket?
Well, the second motion is a blanket.
Should we do that first? I'm thinking so we could cover everything.
Fine with me. You want to make that motion first?
Sure.
Okay.
So I will move to waive the town's petition requirement for another year for all the social service funding requests.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dan. Any other discussion? Good. All in favor, please say aye or thumbs up.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. We're all in favor.
So
Okay.
now the Vermont Family Network, right?
Yes, so we'll, thank you, Jesse, for being here. We have agreed to waive that petitioning for this year.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the additional motion is for the Vermont Family Network.
Yep. So I also move to accept the request from Vermont Family Network for a new appropriation in the FY23 general fund budget for a sum of $2,500.
Is there a second?
The only thing I would put on there, Heather, is for also the 1 year period.
This is the first motion we did is for all of the.
For all of them, okay. Yeah, but I was just thinking this is a new one. So I want to make sure that that's also clear. That's fine, okay.
Okay. So Dan, you seconded? Yes. Okay, thank you. Any other discussion?
No.
Good. All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Or thumbs up.
Aye.
Okay, we're all in
You
favor?
want me to do this or that? Because
Yeah, I know. I
It's
keep-
all purple.
Put your thumb up and say aye.
Yeah.
You get 2 votes.
Okay. So that moves us to, item 9, which is updates on the Vermont Community Broadband. And Chris, let me know,
Obviously, it's 8C.
oh,
You avoided that, I know.
I miss one every single time. Oh, the, MREMs, yes, how could I forget that? So the Middlebury Regional, EMS has submitted a request, for $84,960 in town funding for fiscal year 23 budget, which is unchanged from fiscal year 20 and fiscal year 21. So this agenda item is an opportunity for the board to discuss the process it will use to continue to examine the MREMS funding. So the recommendation from the working group was in our packet, along with discussion from back on January 12th. So I'll open the floor to discussion.
I think you guys, you, Dan, and Nick, really were into this. And if there's anything the board needs to know, you should share with us.
We haven't had any discussion since January 12th.
Since the last time.
Yes. Nick?
What's your thoughts?
No, that's true. I mean, no, that's true. The intention was to have it, and I think largely just a matter of scheduling. It just didn't pan out for us all to be able to meet together. There are certainly some questions out there, but nothing I think that would change the direction at this moment. I mean, it's much more long term. But certainly we're not going to solve that at the moment.
It did seem like most of the issues that we discussed were things that need long-term solutions.
And you do have a recommendation for FY 22-23 something?
I think we had, yeah, so this was December 2020. We didn't necessarily make a recommendation for FY 23.
So, but you did recommend giving a 1-year extension, right?
Yes.
Right.
And of course, we were also dealing with COVID and
Yeah.
everything else, so.
There is
Yeah,
no-
it's really a big regional issue that has to be discussed. It's not just with MRAMs, but it's also involves, again, and other emergency providers in the immediate region and UVM Medical. It's a big situation, and it's something that we're not going to be able to resolve in the immediate.
So, there's no action item.
No.
Do we want to change how we look at this for this year? Or are we thinking we're just gonna continue another?
I would say we will just approve this for 1 year. At our next meeting, maybe.
I think it's an opportunity that we need to pick it up again.
Right.
This next calendar year.
And hopefully you will be able to meet with them a little bit more.
Okay,
How's the communication between them and your group when it comes to this?
I think they've met all of our
Yes.
requests
Yep.
for information, all of our requests for meeting. It's a much more complicated issue than I even imagined before we really started talking about it, and really needs some discussion at even the state level and how emergency services are funded. And like Nick just said, additional communication with UVM Medical and, I don't imagine it's even anything we're gonna solve next year, so.
That's probably true, and I think we, continuing this on an annual appropriation makes sense. But you know, again, I wouldn't say we should commit to doing it ad infinitum, especially since we only know the number is going to go up. But for the time being, it's a big and a complex issue. And there's a lot of factors that have to be taken into account. And it's going to be a real change in how some things are done to guarantee the quality service. But, you know, we can't solve it at this immediate juncture. Doesn't mean we shouldn't quit trying, but, you know, at least keep it in the forefront.
Yeah.
Hey, and Nick, one thing that's interesting is their new application for FY '23. Their total income is $2,035,000, and their total operating expenses was $1,555,000.
Yeah, I actually that was one of the questions I had for them is, okay, so where's the rest of that? But
Hopefully it's paying for that new ambulance.
I think the saving for the ambulance is what I thought.
So they can buy the ambulance with that.
Yeah. So it's a question of what's included in that operating and what's not, so.
that's
So I
true.
think- So it would be probably a good idea to get the working group back to, obviously not for this budget cycle, but, you know, going forward into 2022, to take a look at their numbers again and where they're at and how things are moving. Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
That's true. And also where they see, as well as other organizations that deal with emergency medicine, where they see the future lying. Because when as COVID was hitting, we were starting to hit our stride with a lot of the questions, and there were some fascinating details that came out about where things are going, or where they need to go. So you're correct, Heather. The working group should become more active and draw this information out, because it'll be good for all of us in the area.
Yeah. Okay. Any other discussion on that item? Esther, did you want to add anything?
No, I agree. Let's wait, you know. see.
Okay. I just didn't want to forget that you're there and give you an opportunity to talk if you wanted to.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Heather.
Okay. I haven't missed anything else if I go to 9 now,
No,
right?
you're good.
All right. So this was the updates on the inquiry to Vermont Community Broadband Board regarding funding Maple Broadband's purchase of fiber optic cable and electronic equipment. And Chris let me know before the meeting that Kathleen heard back from Robert Fish. And they are not yet ready to release the details. So we don't really have any additional, oh, it's right here, Robert Fish. We don't have any additional details to discuss tonight. And maybe next week or the first meeting in December. Okay?
Yeah, they got the money coming this way with the infrastructure bill, so.
Yeah, so we'll just wait till we get more information and then we'll go from there. Okay. So I reviewed the check warrants today. And I'll move to approve total expenditures in the amount of $2,425,335.01, consisting of $2,322,002.03 for accounts payable and $103,332.98 for payroll for the period of October 27th, 2021 through November 9th, 2021.
Second.
Thank you, Karma. And did anyone have any questions?
What was the big ticket item? 2 million something.
There was a lot of repairs. Where's the clipboard? It's right over there. Did you sign? There were some repairs, payroll, oh, and we made bond payments, I think.
That's what it was. Yeah.
Okay.
That's, yeah, right at the top of the list is this US Bank equity finance
Yeah.
for 1.8, that's bond payments.
That's
That's the biggest, that was the biggest. You didn't sign this, did you? There's also the proclamation to sign as well. Okay, all in favor of the warrants, please say aye or thumbs up.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we're all in favor. Okay. Board member concerns. Esther, do you want to go first?
Sure.
I can come back to you if you want.
No, it's okay. This works. Nothing at this time.
Okay. Nick. Board member
Nothing from this side, nothing from this side of the world. Heather.
Okay. Farha.
Yes, so I took my booster shot last week, Thursday, I think. Got really, really sick for a couple days, but it was worth it. I'm so happy that I took it, and just wanted people to know that right behind the dollar store, my store, at the old Desert Race building, if you turn on Middle Road by Citizens Bank, that building, they're doing the vaccination shots. You can walk in, you can make an appointment. Folks, if you are still thinking about it, you should do it. We want to be safe, and we don't have to have a discussion about this waiving of the petition. Everybody's healthy, we don't have to do all those things. So we should do our part of it.
Great. Awesome. I've got my daughter signed up. I'm really excited.
Oh, yeah.
She's 11, so.
Oh, she's,
Excited to-
yeah, it's 5 to 12, yeah.
Yeah, so she can finally get vaccinated. Dan.
I have no concerns.
Okay, I'm good as well. And we do not have a need for an executive session, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved,
My gosh, 35 minutes?
so moved.
Get rid of the big,
Thank
get
you.
rid of the big dog and
7:30.
look what happens.
Do you want a second?
Oh, sure, I'll second.
Thank you.
Dan, I told you 7:30, you pushed it 7 more minutes. If you didn't talk about that,
I know,
whatever it was.
I know, I had it.
All right, is anyone opposed to adjourning?
Yeah, Nick
Are you
wants to
kidding?
sit down for a while.
Okay, that's it. Thank you both for being here tonight, Esther and Nick by Zoom, and.
And we have a meeting next week, right?
Yes.
Next
meeting
week.
Next week on Tuesday for the 16th.
See you next week. Good night.
Okay.
Are you going to be here? Nick,
I
are you
will
here
be
next
there.
week? Or?
Yeah, I actually will be there.
You're gonna be here?
I will be.
Dan will not.
Boy, don't sound disappointed. No, okay, well, it's good. All right.
I'm trying
No, I'm
figure
done
out
with this
something
stint.
I'll park with you.
So,
Which-